I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. And this is Currents.
New leaders in the church learn the tools of the trade.
It's about connecting to an individual's heart is really where it starts.
A celebration of priests in the year dedicated to them.
Today in the church, we need more priests, more men to give their lives for the service of God.
And remembering the clergy who've gone before us.
We recognize the goodness of the people who died, and that certainly they most probably enjoy the reward of their goodness.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us this Monday. Well, this is the era of the new evangelization, and you don't have to go too far to know that.
That's right. Just look at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen down there. NET, N-E-T, New Evangelization Television.
But you don't have to be on TV to get involved. Since 1967, the Brooklyn Diocese's Pastoral Institute has been training laymen and women to become leaders in their parish communities.
And this past Saturday, a group of these lay people headed to the Immaculate Conception Center in Douglaston, Queens to learn more.
Evangelization is basically about the kingdom of God, that is continuing the mission that Jesus began.
It's about connecting to an individual's heart is really where it starts.
It's sharing our faith. It's out there preaching the good news. It's being a witness to the gospel.
Evangelization happens according to peer strategies, people reaching out to neighbors and friends. And so it's all the more important that lay people be involved because they have the ability to reach out to their friends and their neighbors.
And their mission or their purpose and goal would be, first of all, for themselves to understand what evangelization is.
But the other half is learning how can we do it, what's working in other places, and sharing our experience with one another. I think it's important for us to come together as church, as groups of people, to learn from one another.
People came today to get a basic idea about evangelization from a Catholic perspective, and also to get some basic concepts of the practice of evangelization.
We've been doing a planning process within each of the parishes where they articulate what their pastoral priorities are, what's most important, what they need to work on as church, and evangelization was the #1 issue.
And as a response to that, and to find out ways of implementing a goal that is directed towards evangelization, they wanted to come to get some practical information on how just to do that in their parishes.
The event was organized by a lot of different ministries within the diocese, and each of them asked their own folks to come in. So it's ministries that are represented, parish pastoral councils, who really work on saying where are we going into the future.
It gives a sense of a diocese beginning to focus in another way on the really important mission of the church, which is to reach beyond its own membership, especially to those who are searching for faith.
Really the question is how do we increase participation within the parishes? How do we get more people in the churches, but also how do we get more people that are in the churches participating in the life of the church? But I think the first thing we have to recognize is that it's the Holy Spirit that does the evangelizing. We're bringing the Word of God to people, and we have to have faith that God works within people's hearts.
Today, when we serve in evangelization, we are basically inviting people to the kingdom and to understand the dimensions of God in their life, the call of God to be involved in this great project of love and grace in Jesus through the power of the Spirit. Basically, the conversion is a conversion to the vision of Jesus and to following discipleship in Jesus, and that's what Catholic life is about.
And we'll have more on the ordained leaders of the church coming up just a bit later on in the show.
But stay tuned when Currents returns. We'll have the day's headlines, including a heated back and forth argument between a congressman and his bishop. We'll tell you why.
And the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury meet weeks after the Vatican's historic announcement.
Well, welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, remembering the priests and deacons in the Brooklyn Diocese who have died in the past year.
But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. Well, just a month after the historic announcement from the Vatican, Pope Benedict met with Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, on Saturday. The Vatican says they discussed the apostolic constitution that will allow groups of Anglicans to convert to Catholicism. The two said they want to continue the ecumenical relationship between the Catholic and Anglican churches. The Pope and Archbishop also spoke about challenges facing all Christian communities. The same day, the Pope also met with musicians, actors, painters, and other artists from all around the world. We get details now from H2O News.
Pope Benedict XVI on Saturday met with over 260 artists from 5 continents in the Sistine Chapel, offering a reflection on art and beauty. He said that if we acknowledge that beauty touches us intimately, that it wounds us, that it opens our eyes, then we rediscover the joy of seeing, of being able to grasp the profound meaning of our existence. The meeting with artists was meant to reestablish a historic friendship between the Church and the arts, and came on the 10th anniversary of the Letter to Artists by Pope John Paul II. Pope Benedict said art in all of its expressions has the ability to broaden the horizons of human consciousness, and it becomes an avenue to the transcendent, to God. The Pope noted that this age is seeing a dramatic waning of hope, and that beauty can be a guiding star for happiness. He said the experience of beauty does not remove us from reality. On the contrary, it leads to a direct encounter with the daily reality of our lives, liberating it from darkness, transfiguring it, making it radiant and beautiful. To the artists, he said they should not be afraid to approach the first and last source of beauty, to enter into dialogue with believers who also consider that they are pilgrims in this world and in history towards infinite beauty. He said faith takes nothing away from their genius or their art. On the contrary, it exalts them and nourishes them. It encourages them to cross the threshold and to contemplate with fascination and emotion the ultimate and definitive goal.
Well, the Pope says genuine beauty gives people a, quote, healthy shock, which keeps a person from being satisfied with the humdrum. Well, back in the U.S., things are anything but humdrum between Rhode Island Congressman Patrick Kennedy and his bishop. Kennedy has revealed that back in 2007, Bishop Thomas Tobin asked him not to receive communion because of his support of abortion rights. Last month, Kennedy criticized the Catholic bishops for being unwilling to support health care reform if it included federal funding of abortion. Bishop Tobin responded by calling Kennedy's comments irresponsible and ignorant of the facts. We will have much more on healthcare later on in the show.
A worldwide poll released today shows most people favor the right to criticize religion. WorldPublicOpinion.org surveyed more than 18,000 people in 20 countries. 57% of those surveyed think people should be allowed to publicly criticize religion because people should have freedom of speech. 34%, though, said they support governments fining or imprisoning people for publicly criticizing religion because they believe it could defame their religion. The poll was released just as the UN General Assembly is debating a proposal that calls for prohibiting the defamation of religions. As we've been telling you, the church has been honoring men who've dedicated their lives to serving God. It's a special year, and this past weekend, the Brooklyn Diocese held a special celebration at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church in Astoria, Queens.
Pope Benedict declared the current year to be a year for priests in honor of the 150th anniversary of the death of St. John Vianney, the patron saint of parish priests. So it's a special liturgical feast in a special anniversary year, and we wanted to do something to keep the parish mindful, because without priests there is no Eucharist, and without Eucharist there is no church. So priests are part of that whole continuum of vocations.
We pray for priests, yes, but we also pray for vocations. We pray for the young men and that are considering priesthood. It's an important moment in the church, and God is calling the same as He has called the priests that are ministering in our parishes, in our institutions, in our schools today. hospitals. He's calling young men to the priesthood. And
we need priests. You know, today in the church, we need more priests, more men to give their lives for the service of God. And I'm willing to do that. You know, I'm willing to lay down everything to give my life for the people of God. And that indeed is a special gift. And that humbles me to do the work that I do and to continue to do the work that I'll do in the future as a priest of Jesus Christ.
The first outcome that I think would be important to see as a result of the Year for Priests would be an increase in the holiness of the priesthood itself. But then secondly, because of that holiness, more fruitful pastoral efforts by priests. And then from that, I think, will come the increase in vocations to the priesthood that we keep praying for.
Priests have a wonderful life. Sometimes people don't understand our way of life. People do not understand our commitment. But the joy, the fulfillment that comes from priesthood is unequaled. I am sure that in all other vocations also there is great joy and fulfillment. But for those who God has called to ministry, it's a life full of enjoyment and fulfillment as we touch the lives of others with the grace of Christ.
And we'll have more on priests in our diocese coming up a little bit later on in the show.
But stay tuned, there's much more current straight ahead.
Coming up, as debate on health care continues, some news for seniors who need to make choices about Medicare.
Well, as we've been telling you, there's been plenty of debate, both on Capitol Hill and elsewhere in the public square, about what kind of health care reform this country really needs.
And while elected officials have some important choices to make, this is the time of year for senior citizens to do the same. To find out more, I spoke last week with Alexander Clegg, Executive Director of United Healthcare in New York and an expert on Medicare. Well, Alexander, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us today. We really appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me, Matt. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much. And you know, I mean, it's obviously a very important time of the year for a lot of seniors. It is the annual enrollment period for Medicare. Tell me exactly what that means and how, what the different parts of Medicare are and kind of the differences between them.
Well, sure. Let's start with the enrollment period. So starting November 15th through the 31st of December of every year, any Medicare beneficiary can make an election for a coverage plan for the upcoming calendar year. So there are other opportunities for individuals to make changes, but they can be more restrictive and not everyone will be able to make any choice they want. So this is a really important time of year to review coverage options, take a little bit of a look into the crystal ball of what may be coming in 2010, and make a proactive decision on what might be the best circumstance for each individual.
Okay, great. So it's anyone who is on Medicare can, at this point, take a look at their coverage and make changes if they would like.
That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Great. Now, as far as the different parts of Medicare, I know this part is kind of where it kind of gets fuzzy because it can be pretty complicated.
Yeah, it can be very complicated. And so let me take a step back. And
Sure.
Most Medicare beneficiaries understand that there are a bunch of parts to Medicare. So there are four main parts. There's Part A, B, C, and D. And we'll go through those. So Part A is what traditional Medicare uses to cover hospital services. And Part B is for physicians. So when you go to see a cardiologist for an office visit, that would be covered under Medicare Part B. Right. Part D is for drugs, and that's the new prescription drug benefit that was launched in the beginning of 2006. Okay. And so Part C, which I skipped, is the so-called Medicare Advantage plan, and that's where all of the parts can be rolled into a one-stop shop, and an individual can buy coverage from a private company that will combine A, B, and D coverage all into one package.
Okay, all right. So very good. So that's it might be a simpler option for some seniors. And how can they really, sort all this out and say, okay, well, this might be what is best for me at a particular time?
Well, so there are a number of different ways in which the parts work together. So in the traditional Medicare system, there are private companies that can wrap around Parts A and B called Medicare supplement policies, and those are available from private companies. And they're standardized, and regulated by both the state and the federal government. Sure. In the Medicare Part C arena, right here in New York City, we have over 20 different companies offering over 100 different benefit designs. So it can be extremely confusing. Medicare itself provides information on its website at www.medicare.gov, and there's also a phone number, which is conveniently 1-800-MEDICARE, and that's 800-633-4227, where individuals can get more information. The other thing that's available for New York State residents is a New York State-run program, which is called the Health Insurance Information Counseling and Assistance Line, and that's run by the state of New York through the New York State Office of the Aging, and that's 800-701-0501. And the important thing about both of these programs is they provide objective advice for individuals, and they will talk about individual circumstances and help a particular individual find the right solution for him or her.
Right. Okay, great. Now, one thing that a lot of people might be facing, and I know this is something that my parents had to face several years back with my grandmother. She lived with us in the house and all of that, so she was a very close part of the family, and it was a very difficult thing maybe to try and figure out what type of coverage that she should have. So what about adult children caring for an aging parent? What advice would you have for them in looking into different Medicare coverage?
Well, I would encourage individuals to, whether it's a beneficiary looking for coverage for him or herself, or for a loved one trying to help a Medicare beneficiary, to look for the types of coverages and cost associated with those coverages that meet the best needs of that individual. Right. So, some Medicare Advantage plans, especially here in New York City, charge no premium to join those plans. So the cost to enter those plans is essentially zero, and that can be a good fit for many folks. Other individuals want to have a certainty of paying a monthly premium and knowing what their out-of-pocket costs are going to be over time. Right. And so for those individuals, a Medicare supplement plan might be good. But the Congressional Budget Office recently released a report indicating that Medicare Advantage plans, on average, save Medicare beneficiaries either in reduced costs or in additional benefits over $1,000 a year for 2009. So those additional benefits might be annual physicals at no charge. They might be gym memberships. They could be hearing and vision services that are not covered under the traditional program. So there's a myriad of options. Medicare's website has a wonderful tool to sort through what's available. And I would encourage folks to look at the reputation of the company. To the extent that there's a network-based plan, make sure you understand whether or not the individual physicians that the Medicare beneficiary accesses are in the network. Right. And then to look at the combination of premium and expected cost.
Okay, great. And that website is medicare.gov, I believe is correct. And one very last quick question here: the annual enrollment period lasts until when?
So we're currently in it. It just started on Sunday, November 15th, and it runs through the end of the year, December 31st.
Okay, great. So they've got a little bit of time here to kind of wrap things up and look at it. Well, Alexander, thank you so much for taking some time out to talk to us today. We really appreciate it.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks. News you can use.
Yeah, well, he definitely clarified a few things, which I think is great, but
Right.
It's very difficult to navigate the healthcare system. Forget about it now perhaps changing.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if it is to change in some way, shape, or form, it can get a little simpler.
Exactly. Well, I remember a few years ago they were talking about that, when they added Part D to Medicare, they were like, oh, this is just going to make it so that much more confusing, for seniors to figure out. But I mean, if you just, and I've never understood it until he said it in that interview.
Yeah.
Part A is for hospital, Part B is for office visits to the doctor.
Yep.
Part D is the prescription drug benefit, and then Part C are the Medicare Advantage, which kind of puts it all in one package.
The whole thing.
So it's really, it's kind of neat. When you think of it that way, just remember it.
It makes it a lot easier.
That's right.
Well, stay tuned. There's much more Current Street ahead.
Coming up, in the Year for Priests, an annual remembrance for the ones we've lost.
We have to pray for those that we love and those that are loved by others.
Earlier in the show, we took you to a celebration in Queens for the Year for Priests.
But last week, our Natalia Ortiz attended another celebration for clergy. This one's a bit different. And she joins us now with that story. Natalia?
That's right. A special mass was held honoring bishops, deacons, and priests who have died in the last year. Friends and family members of these men were invited to remember their loved ones in prayer. The Mass was celebrated by Bishop DiMarzio at the Immaculate Conception Center in Douglaston. And the people who went tried to reconcile the sadness of being without their loved ones with the joy of what their Catholic faith teaches them, that they've gone to a better place. When seen that way, it wasn't as surprising to see some actually smiling.
I'm here today for a memorial for my brother, Monsignor Raymond Rao, who died September 20th. Just this past few months ago.
What thoughts do you have of your brother?
Oh, just wonderful, wonderful. He was a wonderful priest. He was 86 years old. He had a beautiful death, and we're all very happy.
My cousin, Father Michael Walsh, is one of the deceased priests. He died on Christmas Eve last year. And I'm here with his sister and brother-in-law. I grew up with him. I took care of him when he was a baby. And he's been a lifeline to me through my religious life.
We recognize the goodness of the people who died, and that certainly they most probably have enjoyed the reward of their goodness.
And some of the attendees enjoyed reminiscing about their loved ones. Eileen Van Noot recalled her friend Father Timothy Tian's feistier side.
We like to go to a restaurant on Lefferts Boulevard called Don Pepe's, and we would buy family style, so everything got served in the center. And I'd always have to fight him for the garlic.
You told me off camera that you never actually met him personally. Why is it important to you to be here anyway?
Well, it's important because we have to pray for those that we love and those that are loved by others.
I am really thrilled that they have it. I mean, because it's not only for my friend Father Harry, but for all the other priests and deacons who dedicated their lives for us.
The Mass is held once a year honoring those clergymen who passed between November 2008 and November 2009. The event is coordinated by the Bishop's Office and the Office of Liturgy at the Diocese of Brooklyn.
Well, it's so nice to actually see smiles on people's faces, too, as they remember their loved ones. I love the story about the garlic. That's right up my alley, though. You know, talk about food. Hello, I'm there. You know,
yeah, and garlic. Well, that was very surprising to me because we expected, of course, going in to see a lot of people who were very sad, and we did find that as well, of course.
Right.
But you know, the first people that I interviewed was this lovely woman who was just happy, and she said, "We know that he's up there, and we know that he's happy, and we are happy with him."
Yeah, my grandfather always felt that way. He's, you know, I'm going to a better place. It's not, you know, that I'm leaving. It's that I'm just, you know, sort of passing on to a much better place where I can see my mother and
that's right.
You know, be reunited in a way, and so that's why I'm sure that they're as happy as they are.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a happy time if you think of it that way. So, no more suffering, and you know, only joy from there on out.
It's another angle, you know, to view death in a different way. Often we view death as something that's you know, terrible, and it's sad, but it's not really terrible if you are of Catholic faith and other faiths as well.
All right, there we go.
Well, thanks, Natalia, for that. That is all for this edition of Currents. Coming up tomorrow, 800 years is a long time, but we will meet a group that's been living a humble life of prayer and service for just that long.
Until then, you can always watch us online. Just go to currentsny.net.
You can also follow us on Twitter. You can just go to twitter.com/currentsny. So for all of us here at Currents, I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.